So I'll get to the 10 count, and then I'm going to give myself a single. So, Brad, you're going to be out of the picture. Sorry, bud, but you'll be right back. And then I'll do the intro. Okay. Hi, I'm Trevor, and welcome to Catching Up on Cinema. If you aren't familiar with the program, Catching Up on Cinema is a film analysis podcast wherein we introduce each other to films, expand our cinematic horizons, and, in essence, catch up on our cinema. So it is the month of January 2023, and is once again that very special time of the month wherein we do our very special Tales from the Shelf episode. And in joining me in this endeavor, I have my good buddy Brad from the CineSpeak podcast. How's it going, Brad?
It's going great. Glad to be here. And I have to say that this week's theme might be one of my favorites. Something I hold very, very close to my heart, I suppose.
Yeah, so the theme this month, dear listener and or viewer, hopefully viewer, is fantastic finales. Essentially, what we're going to be doing today, and if you're not familiar with the Tales from the Shelf format, essentially what we do on a Tales from the Shelf episode is take a little journey in exploring our film collections, our DVDs, our Blu-rays, and our 4K discs. And the theme for today's episode, this month's episode, is films that happen to possess fantastic finales. And we haven't exactly determined precisely what that means. Finale can imply many, many things, but basically, in the broadest sense, we're talking about movies with either wonderful climaxes, like final sequences, or perhaps simply just final shots or final moments. And I do know that that's a subject that in some of Brad's most recent episodes of the Cinema Speak podcast, you did mention a couple of movies that I think it was the final moments or the final shots were a huge part of what earned it like so much of your praise.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm a big. I usually say like, oh, it's more about the journey than the ending. And while I agree that it's true, I love a good ending. And the ones recently, which I don't own, so I did not pull them off the shelf, but the endings of After Sun and Tar, two amazing final shots, just so good. So I kind of leaned a little bit more into final scenes and shots, although I do have a few climactic finales that I have sprinkled in there as well.
Okay, good to know. So I actually had some difficulty pulling titles off of my shelf that would fit this category. And as a result, I was cheating a little bit, probably. I don't know. We make up the rules as we go. It's Calvin Ball, the podcast. Um, found myself picking movies with strong finales or strong climaxes rather than final like shots, because in general, I think that's probably a harder thing to achieve. But because of its difficulty and because of how memorable that makes a film, like to stick the landing so solidly in the final shot, the final frame of your film, I feel like that makes it all the more memorable. However, I think maybe I discovered in looking over my collection, I don't think I have that many of those. So hopefully you can buffer things and provide those sorts of films over the course of this discussion. But it wouldn't be a Tales from the Shelf episode if I didn't promptly toss Brad under the bus and insist that he share his first pick. So, Brad, what is your first fantastic finale?
Well, let's go with this one. And it's a movie that I really honestly, if I'm being totally honest, the only thing I remember about this movie is the final shot. Really like the movie, only seen it once, but the final shot I think is uh pretty amazing. It's a little bit, into the zone of the like the rat in The Departed, a little bit where it's like you could say, "Oh, it's a little too on the nose" or whatever, but I think I think this is better than The Rat in The Departed. Not that I hate The Rat in The Departed. I mean, it's classic. But I am going to talk about Steven Spielberg's Munich. Munich, which seems like a Spielberg movie that is a little bit forgotten, a little slept on. I would say, let's see, what year did this come out? 2005, maybe? I would say maybe his last really great movie, although I do really like War of the Worlds. Um, his output the last decade or so hasn't been that great, but I think Munich is very strong. It is about the hostage crisis, the Munich hostage situation, and then the team that was sent to hunt down the people responsible. And obviously, there's a lot going on in this movie because it's involving the Israel Palestine conflict. So, and again, I don't remember much from the movie. So I'm not going to get into too many of the details with that because we could be here all day. But I will say that have you seen this movie, Trevor?
I have.
Okay. This one doesn't really apply, but should we say like spoiler warnings for everything we talk about on
Actually, yeah,
this
given that we're specifically talking about the finale sequence or the final moments of, I hope, some pretty good movies,
Mhm.
it would probably be wise at this point to say, hey, spoiler alert, it could
I
happen,
know.
so be careful, dear listener.
And obviously this can't be done while we're streaming live here, but and I don't want to put more work on your plate, but maybe we could potentially do timestamps in the show notes potentially. So if like somebody hasn't seen Munich, they can jump ahead to the next one. I don't know. But
Uh,
I don't want to put more on your plate. I'm throwing this on live in the recording so you can delete this after the fact if you don't want to do that.
I'm
But
pulling up a notepad. I'm pulling up a file, Brad.
um but Munich, the final shot of Munich, where it's Eric Bana and Jeffrey Rush have a conversation. I did watch the final scene on YouTube today because I just wanted to a little bit of refresh myself. Um, they kind of talk about the mission, and Eric Bana is saying, was this all in vain? It seems like he's regretting a lot of the actions because he's not even sure the men he hunted down were responsible. And so he's grappling with that. And then obviously he invites Jeffrey Rush over to his place for dinner and he says to break bread. And Jeffrey Rush turns him down and kind of a little bit symbolic of like how these conflicts, no matter what they are, they never end. It's just violence upon violence. But the final shot, which is pretty amazing, even though it's not subtle, obviously, but where Eric Bana walks away, and obviously the movie takes place in the 70s or whatever, and we pan over as he's walking away to the New York skyline, and we see a shot of the Twin Towers, which I would be curious if I had seen this movie when it came out, like if the parallels would have been like very obvious while you're watching the movie. I watched this years after the fact, so like I wasn't totally thinking about 9/11, the war on terror, and that whole thing. So that kind of final shot kind of really took me by surprise in a little way. It really is kind of like I think like the perfect punctuation on that movie, tying it into something that was very uh, relevant at the time and still relevant today. And I love that final shot. You see the twin towers in the background. Not like I watch it because in my mind it was like the twin towers. You see them like they're like super like large in the frame, center frame. I mean, they're off in the distance, so it's not like super obvious. But yeah, it's a great final shot, directed by Steven Spielberg. Comes up. Yeah, I really don't remember much about this movie aside from that final shot. So it's a great finale. It's a fantastic finale, I would say.
Yeah, I'd say that as well. I actually did not remember that final shot, but now that you've reminded me of it, makes me kind of want to go back and rewatch that one. I do remember enjoying it, but much like you, the details are all very, very hazy. I remember the cast being very, very strong. You had Eric Bana not exactly making the biggest impression, but Craig, he kind of jumped out. He stood out from the pack quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I forget the pronunciation. Is it Ciaran or Kieran Hines?
Uh, I don't know.
Perpetually grumpy faced man. He was very good in it as well.
Yeah.
Um, but obviously, a politically charged and very divisive film in a lot of ways. But a very well executed film on a technical and performance level. It is Spielberg after all. Um, It's funny actually that I wasn't alive when the Munich attacks happened, but my first encounter with it also came through film, not through like a history book or like a classroom or anything. It was, if memory serves, I think Prefontaine actually includes that, although the way it's portrayed in that film is from an observer's standpoint, where I believe that that portion of the games is canceled as a result of the attacks. And I think it's framed as just like, oh, also Forrest Gump, I think it maybe did something as well. I could be wrong on that, but
Probably, yeah.
I'm probably wrong on that bit. But anyway, horrible thing that happened, but a very very good movie. And I'm glad you prefaced things by mentioning The Departed, because that does have that aspect to it where it's like teetering on the edge of being a little too on the nose, a little too ham-fisted. But if it works, it works, and it sounds like it
Yeah.
worked for you.
And even The Departed, I don't, like, love it. It's not like I'm like, "Oh, that is good," but it's not he's not trying to pull a fast one on you, like, it's very like, it's meant to be obvious, like, it's just it's classic, like, it's not meant
Yeah,
to be subtle, which
yeah.
I think it works.
Yeah, no, I mean the music cue that hits in The Departed, it's basically just the movie winking at you and saying like, it's like
Mhm.
that's cute, isn't it? It's like,
Yeah,
yeah, yep, that was a movie. But
yeah.
thanks for sharing that, Brad. I'll do my best to keep a running tag here of our time codes for spoiler alerts and whatnot. Um, and I'm actually going to assign you some homework on the fly here, if you don't mind,
Alright.
as I'm working on selecting my next pick. So, if you could go to your settings and toggle the mirror camera function, because of I have a little bit of trouble reading titles backwards. That's just a me thing, but there we
Alright,
go. You got it. Thank you.
there we go.
Okay, so I suppose the ball is to me. So, what am I gonna pick? I have way too many titles set aside. I'm probably gonna drop something. Shit. Okay, so this is a movie that we did review on Catching Up on Cinema in its entirety, uh, and a movie that I've owned twice now. I think maybe three times, including a initial purchase in the form of a bootleg. So I have here a Delta Mac, a Delta Mac label. This is a Hong Kong label. Blu-ray of Wilson Yip's SPL, Sat Po Lung. I forget what each individual character means, but there is an on-screen description as to what the title of the film refers to, and apparently it's something to do with astrology. It's like stars assigned to you at birth that have to do with your lot in life, your fate. And it doesn't take a genius to figure out that each one of these stars, each one of these fates, is assigned to one of the three main characters in the film. And basically, all of them have real bad fates in store for them. Um, and as a result, the finale of this film, and I'll have to take note of the time code, it is 1350. um, the finale of this movie is a just a masterclass of martial arts action cinema. This is Donnie Yen, Sammo Hung, a very, well, not very, but a young Wu Jing, who is now basically the king of the mainland Chinese box office. This is a Hong Kong production, but he's basically he's the biggest name they've got right now. He did the Wolf Warrior movies, and I think they have a sequel to The Wandering Earth coming out very soon. Um, if it's a Chinese blockbuster that has like all the celebrities in it, he's probably headlining it. In this, he doesn't even he's dubbed because I don't think he speaks Cantonese, and he's just here to throw hands. It's pretty cool. Like he has some really spectacular action sequences, but it's interesting to see him so early in his career. But anyway, the fantastic finale of SPL begins with perhaps one of the best weapon-based fight sequences in film history between Donnie Yen and Wu Jing. It's a extendable police baton wielded by Donnie Yen versus a short dagger wielded by Wu Jing. It's basically a fence. It's a modern day fencing match with obscure weaponry, and it's 3 minutes of heaven. It's one of the best things ever committed to film. Followed immediately by Donnie Yen getting in an MMA fight with Sammo Hung, who is obviously up there in years by the time they're getting this film, which came out in I think it was like 2004, 2005. Um, but it's a terrific fight unto itself. It ends really funnily with Sammo Hung getting flipped over Donnie Yen's head in like a spectacular wire gag onto a champagne tower. It's like that was a little over the top. That looked like something out of a WWE hardcore match. That looked like something Mankind would have done back in the day, but I'll allow it. But the real kicker, the real, like, when we're talking fantastic finales, because I just talked about all the cool stuff, the real drama of the finale of this movie comes in the form of the aforementioned not so hot fates in store for the main characters of this movie. Uh, this is like a super. This is like the opposite of the mega happy ending, to use Wayne's World parlance, Brad. So again, full spoilers. The actual main character of the movie is portrayed by Simon Yam, who's basically a Chinese actor that shows up in literally everything. And he's very, very good in everything, including this. He has had, I believe, a tumor in his brain the entire movie that overtakes him in the final moments of the film. But before that, Donnie Yen, after having just defeated Sammo Hung, is tossed out a skyscraper window by Sammo Hung, at which point his body plummets out the window and falls onto the nearby car of Sammo Hung's wife and child,
Oh, wow.
thereby killing the two of them.
Wow.
So Donnie Yen, the man who very seldom dies in cinema, his death count is probably on par with Steven Seagal in terms of times you've seen him die on camera. Like Steven
Mhm.
Seagal, it's like executive decision. That's basically it. Maybe he died in Machete. I can't remember. He was in Machete. I remember that.
I don't even remember that.
Yeah, but Donnie Yen gets tossed out a fucking window. He gets to win the fight because it's Donnie Yen, and he does have an ego. It was the 2000s. He was stroking his dick for sure,
Yeah.
but he gets tossed out that window. He falls on Sammo Hung's wife and child, thereby killing them. And then we cut to Sammo Hung crying in his lap. Because he just, oh my god, I just killed my wife and baby by tossing a really absurdly handsome man on them. Cut to Simon Yam on the beach with his with his, I think it's his adopted daughter, and he dies while she's playing on the beach, unaware that her adopted father has died. So he's like sitting on the beach in his suit, like his head just like bowed in his lap while she's running around playing on the beach. And there's sad music playing and just like shuts to black. It's just like, oh my god, like this movie sucks. Like I was having
Downer.
fun 10 minutes ago, and now everybody's fucked. How's that girl gonna get home? She can't drive.
Is, like, so the rest of the movie, does it hint at, the ending being such a downer, or does it kinda come out of nowhere?
Uh It actually does. It has an atmosphere to it. Like, it's a very good movie. I mean, you come for the martial arts and the action, but you stay for the Hong Kong melodrama, because literally every character in this movie has some sort of business going on. That's like, it's either they have like family issues, or like they're dealing under the table or something. Like everybody's doing some underhanded shit or has some regrets. And there's just so many instances of just the movie trying to rip your guts out. Like there's a scene where two major characters, both reconcile with important people in their lives and are immediately murdered. like the one guy's like on the phone with his dad, or no, it's with his mom, who tells him his dad just died but forgot to tell him. And before that, his partner, they're both cops. Before that, his partner is like he has a sit down like get together with his daughter, who he's largely estranged from because I think he's divorced. And like the second his daughter leaves to get on a bus to go home, he gets stabbed to death. And then the same guy, Wu Jing, stabs his partner to death. And it just keeps happening in the movie.
It's almost like the classic, like, TV trope of, you know, that well, like, right before a character bites it, they start to give that character more screen time and, like, kinda wrap up any potential loose threads, like, give them some emotional weight so that when they do end up dying, it makes their death all the more affecting and like, "Oh, my gosh, we've just spent the last 5 episodes with this person, we love them now." Kinda reminds me of that a little bit.
Oh yeah, no, that's a very familiar trope where it's like it's so familiar to the point that like whenever I'm watching something and you start to notice that, it's like I don't think this person's gonna be around very
Yeah.
long. Like especially if they're like a guest star or something, where it's like I don't think they got them for the whole season. But yeah,
No.
SPL highly recommended. I mean, I know I just like spoiled the whole damn thing for you, Brad, but it's an enjoyable movie on top of all that. Like really, this was kind of leading the charge of like the 2000s Hong Kong action revival because this came out like post Ong Bak, I believe. And so that was like a shot across the bow of the Hong Kong stunt industry where it's like, oh, we better step up our game. Like people in other regions are doing some incredible stuff. We got to try something different. So this was like one of the first Hong Kong productions to utilize like mixed martial arts in the choreography style. And plus the cast, like especially in retrospect, especially now that Wu Jing is like the biggest thing in China, like you got Donnie Yen, Sammo Hung, and Wu Jing all in the same movie, all doing pretty extensive action work. It's a good time.
Yeah, I mean, that one, it almost sounds like you get a twofer kind of finale because you get um, the fight you said was great, and then the emotional moment at the end there, so boom.
Yeah, yeah, it's a very well-rounded film. It's one of Donnie Yen's better collaborations with Wilson Yip. This was actually their first one together. The two of them would end up doing many films together, including the Ip Man films. So very highly recommended if you find an occasion to check it out. But that's enough out of me about SPL. Excuse me while I take down the time code so as to not spoil things. Um, but
Listen, if this is
Brad,
being too much work, we can abandon this, I don't want I meant to bring it up beforehand, but
I'm committed, Brad. It's happening. That being said, Brad, what is your next fantastic finale?
alright, so my next fantastic finale, this is, something I know I've talked about on Tales from the Shelf before, but I would be remiss if I didn't bring it up because it is one of my all-time favorite endings. We're talking about the Before trilogy, Richard Linklater's The Before trilogy, but we ain't talking about Before Sunrise. We ain't talking about Before Midnight. No, we're talking, throw those in the trash. We're talking about Before Sunset, which so where do I even start with this? So it's a trilogy, it's a love story trilogy, basically. And Before Sunrise, Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy meet each other on a train going to Paris, and they spend just a whole day walking around, talking, and getting to know each other. Fall in love, but they both live in different countries. But they say, hey, 1 year from today, we'll meet back here and we'll, if we want to, somehow pursue this in a year from now, we'll try it, but we'll meet back here 1 year. And so this jumps ahead like 9 years, I think. And we meet up with Ethan Hawke, who is a author now. He is married, not to Julie Delpy, but to somebody else. He's got a kid, and he ends up doing a book tour and making a stop in Vienna. And Julie Delpy sees that he's coming to the city and sees that she's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, the guy from 9 years ago." Turns out they never met up a year later. It fell through. But this one is very similar in that they're walking around, but this one's a little different because they're older and the whole thing is Ethan Hawke. I really hate these I really hate these covers. They're just gross.
I
I
was
don't
about to
like
say,
them.
you guys show the other ones for just a second because that rendering of Ethan Hawke is, I hate to say it, but kind of hideous.
Yeah.
Handsome man, but terrible rendering.
You know, it kind of bugs me because I remember I talked about this in my top 10 Criterion release video on YouTube, and I got a comment from a guy who he had many bad things to say about me in the video, but one of the things was he was like, "Those I think those covers are really beautiful. Don't you think they're trying to emulate the rotoscope that Richard Linklater does with his other films?" And I'm like, "Buddy, I don't know about that. And for even if they are, this movie ain't rotoscoped. This ain't rotoscoped. You
Buddy.
think you're gonna put a Tintin looking cover on fucking Munich? Let's go. What are we doing here? Those are different movies. Come on now."
That cover of Before Sunrise, he looks like Jay Baruchel, not or
He
Baruchel,
does,
however
yeah.
his name is pronounced.
Yeah. Not good. Not a good cover. But anyway, amazing movies. And so in Before Sunset, they're walking around. The whole thing is Ethan Hawke is on this book tour and he has a plane to catch. So this movie is a tight 80 minutes, almost plays out all in real time. And basically, it's them walking around, getting to know each other. But the whole movie, Ethan Hawke is like, I got to get to the airport, catch my plane. But yeah, let's go grab a coffee. Yeah, I got to get to the airport soon. But okay, I'll walk over there and see where you work. But and they keep walking around. He keeps going, yeah, I got to get going to the airport, but I got a few more minutes. And it's kind of like, you're wanting them to get together, but there's like a ticking clock this time. And the ending, which is so good, is that it gets to the point where he's like, man, I'm going to be late, but maybe, if traffic is okay, my driver, I'll be able to just get through security. It's going to be close, but she invites him to her apartment. She's like, well, why don't you come over and come see my place? And he's like, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. And she's like, it's going to be close, but we don't want you to miss that plane. And he's like, I'll come up. I'll just come up real quick and check it out. They get to her apartment and they start talking. They start talking about Nina Simone, and she is talking about a Nina Simone concert she saw or something. And she puts on a Nina Simone record, and she puts the record on and she starts dancing to it in like it's kind of sexy fashion. And he sits down on the couch. He takes off his coat. And while she's dancing to this Nina Simone song, she goes, baby, you are going to miss that plane. And obviously that plane is to take him. I forget if it's to his next stop, but either that or home to his wife and child. And she says that, and he just goes, I know. And fades to black, and that's where we leave it. We never see them kiss or hook up. She just says, "You're gonna miss that plane," and he goes, "I know." And so that's how that one ends. And I just think that's such an amazing ending. Just such a like a sexy ending, but leaving it still kind of open ended. But with the way he delivers that line is just amazing. So yeah, it's one of my honestly all-time favorite movies, and a lot of it comes down to that ending, and how they play that scene. So it's a good one.
Yeah, folks at home, if you're not aware, Brad has spoken very highly of this trilogy of movies several times in our conversations over the years, and I still to this day have yet to see them. But just hearing you talk about just now, it's like, yeah, you can tell this man loves these movies. But yeah, that sounds fantastic. In fact, that's almost like a season finale, not a film ending.
Yeah, and it's kind of even crazier, because I didn't see the first 2 movies until I knew about the 3rd one coming out. So having seen this and it just being a sequel to a movie from 9 years earlier, no guarantee that there would be a 3rd movie. That is a pretty bold place to leave what could be the final chapter on their story. Obviously, it wasn't, but at the time, we didn't know we'd be getting a 3rd movie. So I think that is even more of a like kind of daring, bold ending, just to leave it essentially totally open ended, but you can read between the lines enough that he and I guess it is kind of shitty of him, but he ended up, he did leave his wife for this woman he met in Paris 9 years ago. But obviously, from our perspective, it's what we wanted him to do because we had that moment together and with them in the first movie.
Yeah, I mean that's the essence of drama. It's like that's actually kind of a interesting thing that I'm starting to realize not everybody's okay with. Like some people can't handle like having disagreements with, or like quote not liking their characters or their protagonists. Like an unlikable protagonist is just like the ultimate turnoff for some people when
Mhm.
it comes to their personal viewing habits. So to have your central character do something like that, even if it like plays into where the narrative is guiding us, even though on some level we're wanting to see that happen just for our own selfish delights. Like some people I could see that just being like, oh well, I didn't like that feels weird. It's like,
Mhm.
but yeah, that sounded fantastic the way you laid out the scene like that.
Yeah, it's also,
Especially
I think,
daring too.
yeah, and I think it's also a little worth noting is that, because they in the last movie, they said, "We'll meet back here in 1 year." Um, they meet up in this movie, and Julie Delpy, her character, she goes, "Yeah, you didn't show up a year later in Paris, right? Like, you didn't show up." And he goes, "No, no, no, I didn't show up. I didn't show up either." But then later in the film, he does admit that he ended up showing up and she didn't. So he was carrying that torch for her, and he kind of, when she didn't show up, he thought he'd never see her again, which is one of the reasons why he moved on and got a wife. So there's, you know, there's more to it than just him, you know, leaving his wife for some French girl he barely knows, I guess.
No, I'm sure it's a very complex film and very complex series for that matter, and I really would like to see it. Richard Linklater is just one of those filmmakers that I need to explore more of his filmography in general, especially because like I don't know, his name's been popping up a lot lately. There's just
Mhm.
something in the air, so I've had him on his mind the past couple of days. And in fact, it's kind of a weird thing that doesn't exactly tie things together in a neat little bow, but Kyle and I just reviewed Top Gun Maverick the other day for catching up on cinema, and I guess the one cast member, Glenn Powell,
Mm.
who I only I only knew him from the Expendables 3, where he did fuck all. He climbs an air duct, folks. That's his contribution to that film. Apparently, he's worked with Richard Linklater at least twice. So, like the way I thought of that, it's like, like he must be doing something right if he's getting the attention of a director like Linklater.
Yeah, I think that's where I first saw Glenn Powell, was in Everybody Wants Some.
Yeah,
But yeah, I like Linklater quite a bit. There's definitely some blind spots even for me that I still haven't seen that I need to fill in.
yeah. I mean, he has a fairly dense filmography, so it's okay if you don't see him all immediately, but you'll get there, Brad. Give it
Yeah.
time. Great pick. Makes me really want to check out that trilogy, but I need to mark the time code. It's just about 33 ish. Sure. Okay, so I suppose the pick is to me, and I guess the only way this connects to anything that Brad just said, yeah, everything that guy just said is bullshit, is the fact that this is also a uh, part of a trilogy, although yours was the middle chapter, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, mine is the final chapter, but it is part of a trilogy, and it does come in a cute little box. So this is one way that those two picks are connected. I'm trying, folks. Give me a break. Okay, here. So I have here from everybody's favorite Blu-ray distributor and publisher, Mill Creek Entertainment. This has also been put out by the Arrow Group, who do probably a much better job of handling these particular discs, but they also charge quite a lot more than Mill Creek. I have here the Gamera trilogy. This is the Shusuke Kaneko trilogy of 90s Gamera films, Guardian of the Universe, Attack of Legion, and The Revenge of Iris or Iris. This is all three films collected in two clamshell cases, which is kind of obnoxious.
I don't
Like,
like that. Don't like that.
yeah, I really don't like that either. Especially, ooh, yeah, there's an asymmetry in the presentation of the Mill Creek labels as well. Two different labels on two different clamshells in the same box.
Yikes.
Brad is
Yikes.
just puking in his lap. I'm sorry, bud. So, specifically, though, I am referring to the last chapter, which is Gamera 3, Revenge of Iris, or Iris. Two different pronunciations, doesn't really matter. So this movie is very, very good. All three of these movies are very, very good.
Wait,
Um,
not to interrupt you here, but
yo,
the first, because there's only the 2 cases. Does the first case have 1 and 2, and 3 has its own?
yeah.
Don't like that.
I'm so sorry, Brad. Yeah, I don't either. One of these days, I will upgrade to the Arrow version, if only because I bet you they handle the translation and the image quality just better in general. But yeah, this is a fugly package. I mean, the cover art is nice, and the fact that it comes in a box is kind of nice. But yeah, the 2 cases for 3 films, not exactly the best. Also, this cover art is uh, somebody spent 2.5 minutes on that. Like really, it's
Yeah.
just like 2 production photos lazily slapped together. And even the font it feels disingenuous. Like it just lacks any sort of impact. Anyway, the fucking movie. so, so this trilogy of movies is very, very highly regarded among like Daikaiju cinema. That's giant rubber suited monster movies from Japan. Um, these kind of like swooped in out of nowhere and blew people away, just because the level of production quality, and the style of the presentation was just so beyond anything that was being done in the genre. Because you need to remember that like there were Godzilla films contemporary to these that were very, very fun and very, very colorful, but they were, pitching straight down the middle. They weren't exactly breaking the mold in terms of special effects technology or like really groundbreaking ideas in terms of presentation. But these ones, they have a unique feel to them because a lot of the storytelling is imparted via news reports and ambient dialogue. So just like commotion that you just like, it's not exposition dumps delivered by the main characters or whatever. It's usually just like a talking head news anchor that happens to be on in the background while those characters are eating lunch or something. And it just lends a sense of reality to things that you see emulated in so many contemporary movies of this sort. It has a really cool feel to it when it's done well, as it is done in these films. But in this third one, it's the end of a trilogy, so I'm not going to go over everything that happened. But there's a lot of plot revelations as to the nature of the giant flying turtle, Gamera, and what he means and how he relates to humanity. And the whole narrative is largely centered around a young girl whose family was killed during the events of the finale of the first film in the trilogy. So they retcon her into the story. So they actually use stock footage of that finale sequence from the first film in the trilogy, and they show it in black and white, and they show that one of the buildings that the fucking turtle fell through, her parents were in. So unlike many people in the fiction of Gamera, she doesn't appreciate him. Like he saved the world at least twice over the course of the past several years, but she has a personal grudge against him because her parents are dead. Um, and also, she ends up being directly connected to the villain of this film. It grows stronger as a result of exploiting her emotions and her life energy. It's a whole complicated thing. Anyway, the final sequences of the film are very special effects heavy, really incredible stuff. One of the only indoor giant monster fights I can recall of this scale. Takes place in, I think it's the Kyoto train station. So it's like the miniatures. There's a ceiling uh, going, like they're actually in a ceiling like arena, something that you don't see in these kinds of movies very often. Um, Anyway, she ends up changing her mind about how she feels about Gamera just a little bit, because he selflessly saves her while fighting the other monster. And the closing moments of the film involve a giant swarm of creatures that have proven to be very, very difficult to kill over the events of the past several films, such that it's like basically hopeless. Like you look up in the sky and you just see it blackened by all these flying creatures. It's like, so the big turtle's got one hand. He's got a hole in his stomach, and he's the only one that's going to try to fight these things. And the music swells, and the entire city's on fire, and all of our main characters watch the big turtle, the big dumb turtle, march out to what appears to be, his last stand, I guess. But there's in spite of like how hopeless things appear, I think it's heavily implied that we're actually going to survive that. Um, and a lot of it has to do with the story kind of pointing to like the big turtle is as strong as our belief in him. And through small moments like him saving the girl who previously hated him, it kind of has a vibe that's like I think humanity is ready to back the turtle right now. So it's combination of like this looming presence of doom, but also this feeling that's like, you know what, I think it's gonna be okay. But we don't even get to see what happens. Just like this beautiful piece of music swells, the theme music, and then the title of the film appears, and then we cut to credits, and
Really?
a cheesy ballad. Yeah, that's the end.
I like that.
Yeah, it's pretty ballsy to like deny you the big slam bang action finale or whatever,
Yeah.
but also kind of like plant the seeds into your head as to what probably is going to happen. But it's a very mature way to end a film series. Honestly, like you don't see that level of restraint very often in movies like this.
Yeah. Now, Gamera, that's if I'm wrong, let me know, but that's the one where there's like the two distinct eras, right? Or
There's at least three actually.
oh, okay.
uh, maybe two, but there was a brief attempt to revive the series in the 2000s, several years. I think it was like 2006. And it was also targeted at a younger audience. It's not a bad movie by any means. Has a really cool enemy monster. It's like a frilled lizard with a like javelin like tongue. But and also funny it comes up. They actually announced not too long ago that I think there's going to be an animation project for Gamera
Hmm.
soon, which is not what I want. But we're getting it, so whatever. Like everything we got, like if it's a franchise, bring it back. It's
Yeah.
like no, I don't need that, but because I didn't. I'm a hardcore Godzilla fan. I didn't even bother with the Netflix animation. Like it's like it looks cool, just don't care.
Animation is for babies. No, I'm joking,
Oh,
but
Brad, I wish you had your soundboard.
I know, right?
uh, but yeah, that was Gamera 3. I highly recommended all three of those movies. I think they're fantastic. For whatever the fuck reason, we've only reviewed the second one for Catching Up on Cinema. Kyle really wanted to watch that one for some reason. I don't know if he's even seen the other two. I doubt it. But we did review that one several years ago. I don't expect we'll be reviewing the other two.
So is that trilogy like one era or
Yes,
okay.
all one director and all one era as well.
I might have to pop on that. Well, I know how it ends, so I guess not. But
Yeah, and well, I mean it's very small part of, but
don't need
um,
to see it now, so thank you.
but I will point out that the director Shusuke Kaneko, Toho, the company that makes Godzilla, they didn't poach him, but I'm going to use that word. They poached him a few years after this trilogy wrapped to actually direct a Godzilla film, and it's a very good one. He seems to have a gift for this particular genre, even though I think those four movies are the only ones he's ever done.
Mm.
But it was kind of neat to see the guy who did such a wonderful job with that other monster like do a good job with the more arguably the more popular one.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely Gamera is something I wanna get into sometime. Maybe I'll pick up those, Arrow releases, although I think they might be out of print.
Yeah, I think they're getting up there in price. I know
Yeah.
the box that combines the two is ludicrously expensive.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
But I think the two separate ones are sub $50.
Oh, okay.
So they're not crazy, but they are pricey.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean the older ones, the Showa era ones, those could make for good watch-alongs with some of your buddies or something, because they do get plenty ridiculous, and you need to keep in the back of your mind that they're for kids as well, and just tally the instances of grotesque violence that occur in those movies. It's like, hang on, is that bat creature going to have? Oh, it had all of its limbs chopped off and its head for kids. They're great. The Mystery Science Theater 3000 people made liberal use of the Gamera library of
Mm.
films back in the day. Okay, well, that's enough out of me yakking about giant rubber monsters. I don't expect you'll have one of those for your next pick, Brad, but what is your next fantastic finale?
Next one, it's a little bit of an obvious one, I gotta be honest, but, I gotta do it. I gotta do it. And that is, what I would say my favorite Quentin Tarantino film is Inglorious Basterds. This one has just continued to grow for me. I've loved it ever since I first saw it, but I do think it is my favorite of his. I do have the 4K here, unopened, purchased on Black Friday, still unopened. I've heard there's a few issues with the transfer, but it was $10, so I said, hey, why not? But the ending, I mean, there's not much to say. Obviously, there's the whole theater, heist. Well, not heist, but plan and execution of that, and then cutting obviously to Brad Pitt and BJ Novak as they're being led out into the forest by Christoph Waltz to be essentially handed over, and they're going to take him prisoner because he's made a deal for himself. But then, obviously, when they go back on the deal, and Brad Pitt says, "Hey, we're gonna honor that deal that was made, but we're gonna, do a little bit of damage here to you first before we turn you in." And the idea of finally showing him cutting the swastika into the forehead is an awesome kind of like final like bit of gore there to finally deliver on that promise. And of course, the final shot from Christoph Waltz's perspective with Brad Pitt and BJ Novak looking over him, looking down at the swastika mutilation on his forehead, and Brad Pitt saying, "I think this might be my masterpiece," which I like. I don't think it's too winking. Again, it's classic. It's not. I don't think it's too corny at all. I think it's classic. I don't know. I think Tarantino has walked that back and said that maybe it's not his masterpiece. I think he maybe says Once Upon a Time is Hollywood is his best movie now. I feel like I've heard him say that. So I don't know if it loses a little weight because of that, because old Quentin's flip flopping on his favorite movie of his. But I think it's his best movie. 2.5 hours flies by. Every chapter is amazing. It's awesome. And yeah, the ending is really good. And the music that plays in the ending, I don't know what it is. It's obviously not an original score because there's no original score in this movie. But that track that plays over that ending scene and the closing credits is perfect. Like just so good. And yeah, I love Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah, you and a lot of other people, man. Like I think my regular co-host on Catching Up on Cinema, Kyle, I don't know if that's his favorite Tarantino movie, but I know he absolutely loves that movie. And a lot of people in my orbit also love that movie. And then there's my ass, who must have been on like having a really shit day or something. I just don't really have an opinion of it.
Mhm.
I'm sure it was good. I can't imagine it wasn't, but for whatever reason, my memories of that movie are very fragmented. Um, and I don't know what the fuck happened during my viewing of that, because like I mean I've done hundreds of episodes of podcasts talking for hours and hours about shittier movies, and somehow for whatever reason that one went in one eyeball and out the other one. But what I'm trying to get at is I think I am due for a rewatch, because I'm frankly a little bit embarrassed. No, like really, because like a lot of my friends, that's like, oh, it's top five, top three, one of my favorite movies ever, and I'm like, really? Like I don't fucking remember it. Like I remember the beginning, I remember the part in the theater, I remember slivers. I don't remember the whole thing. Um, so yeah, I'm very much due for a rewatch. And even as you're telling me the finale, I'm like, I don't remember that shit.
Oh, yeah? Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not making fun of you, Brad. I'm making fun of
No.
myself, my inability to remember what it was probably a very good film.
I love how it's like, because it's 5 chapters essentially, and in a way, each chapter is almost like one long scene. Each one is like a long scene. Like, there's obviously, like, looking at the 2nd chapter, there's the whole scene with it kind of it's broken up because if I'm remembering right, it starts with, the that's actually probably not right, but basically like we meet this German soldier who is recounting the story of running into the bastards to Hitler, and then we're within that story being told from this German soldier's perspective, this Nazi's perspective. Then we're seeing things that happened to him and his squad, and from there we're hearing Lieutenant Aldo Rain discuss things, and we're flashing back to other things, but it's essentially like one long scene, and each chapter is kind of like that. It's just a long scene that's broken up into different, cutaways and flashbacks, but they're all kind of one long scene that plays out. And I just think it's just this movie flies by because of that. It's so watchable. Every time I watch it, I have a newfound appreciation for it. And yeah, I think it's his best. And I don't know if it's because there's such a lack, like, I guess Django and Hateful Eight are like this as well, but he isn't relying on pop culture stuff or old Hollywood stuff. Like, there's a little bit of that, obviously, with like the movie theater stuff, but it's not like bad. And not that I dislike that stuff, but it just feels like this one's a little, I guess, more timeless, even though his other stuff is kind of timeless. Because like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it's, even they're talking about much older things, but yeah, it's just one that it's my favorite of his.
Duly noted. Like I said, I'm very much due for a rewatch. I don't know if the girlfriend's seen that one, but if she hasn't, then that's a good excuse to get me to rewatch it and her to be introduced to it. Um, I'll have to text Kyle, let him know that I can't remember it very well. He'll probably just be like, "Can we like do an episode like like an emergency episode like right now?" Because he
Yeah.
he also really loves that movie.
Mhm.
So I got here I am with egg on my face, like, struggling for things to say about it.
It
Um,
happens, it happens. I mean, at least you have seen it. I mean, it's not like a
I
blind
did,
spot for you, so
yeah, I did. I remember Hateful Eight. Ennio Morricone is credited with the score.
yeah.
That was his first collaboration with him, right?
Yeah, I think of unless I'm wrong, I think it's his only movie that has an original score. Everything else is, like, just soundtracked, you know?
Okay. Yeah, because I know in Django he actually lifted music from the original Italian Django films, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I wouldn't be surprised if maybe the music that you're referring to is borrowed from perhaps like an older film.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think I think it might be. I
well,
don't know what yeah, I have no idea, but
well,
oh, it looks like it is,
I'll
it might be Morricone, yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, he is. the maestro, and clearly he has a particular affinity for him, so that makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, excellent pick, Brad. I hope you crack that 4K open soon. Let me know how it turns out.
I'll get to it. I'll get to it.
All right. Well, my next pick, I suppose the ball is to me. So I don't have. Okay, I'm gonna go with this one just because it's one that I don't think we've talked about before. Because you do enough of these shows, folks, you start to repeat yourself a little bit. So just for the sake of novelty, I'm gonna do something a little different. It's not that I have a stronger affinity for this particular film or its finale above some of the other movies I have in front of me, but I don't think we've talked about this one, so why the fuck not? So for my pick, hot on the heels of Quentin Tarantino's masterpiece, The Inglourious Basterds, I have perhaps Hollywood blacklisted Joe Carnahan's The Gray.
Mm.
I say perhaps Hollywood blacklisted because something went wrong, something went awry with Mr. Carnahan's career, and I don't know what, but he's not doing as well as he was when this movie came out. I'll just leave it at that. Because I know he did that boss level movie with his buddy Frank Grillo that got dumped on Hulu or some shit. Um, but beyond that, I don't know that he's been doing anything of note over the past several years. But anyway, this movie, The Gray, I actually saw this in the theater, and I'm really glad that I did, um, because I feel like it heightened the experience. I don't think it's the best movie ever made or anything, but it is intense, and it does beat you the fuck down, and that whole experience is heightened by the big screen and the big sound system. Um, but specifically, the fantastic finale of this movie is is what was advertised. And remember, mind you, this is in the post Taken era of Liam Neeson's filmography. So this movie was explicitly advertised as Liam Neeson boxing wolves in the wilderness. um, that is the finale of the movie, but it's not the way it was advertised. It's handled much more tastefully, to the film's credit, because the film was not building up to a slam bang action finale. It was building up to the way this movie ends. Um, but yeah, it's basically a hopeless scenario, kind of similar to Gamera, I guess, but this one's actually hopeless as far as I can tell. Where our hero, if you can call him that, our last surviving guy, basically, is cornered in the wilderness by a pack of wolves, and he braces himself to do whatever he can to defend himself. And he actually recites a poem that, if I was a better podcaster, I would have in front of me so I could recite it. But something "live and die on this day," I believe, is repeated a couple of times. I believe the story behind it is that Liam Neeson wrote it in response to his wife's passing. So he actually, I think the words penned actually came from the man himself, if memory
Oh, I
serves.
didn't know that.
I could be bullshitting, but I do seem to remember hearing that, because it does feel poignant somehow. Like, it feels like, whoa, where did that come from? It's like, oh, well, just so happens that that was a thing that happened in his life not too long before this. Um, but yeah, there is no combat. It basically, it's a snap to black, I believe. I actually haven't watched this since I saw it in the theater, or since I got this Blu-ray rather. Um, but there is a post credits thing apparently that I didn't stick around for in the theater, but I did see it on the Blu-ray, where I believe it's him laying alongside one of the wolves, and I think I forget who is breathing, but someone is still alive. Um, he's not making it home. Like the point is, he dies. It's like he goes down swinging, but he dies. Everyone in this movie fucking dies. This movie is absolutely brutal. And a lot of it, for me personally, the viewing experience of it was the cold, just how just irrepressibly cold it is in the whole film. It just makes you feel awful to just watch people be so miserable for so long. Um, and yeah, this is just a survival tale that doesn't end well for anyone, but uh, it's quite the journey. It's quite the struggle. And I was really shocked by how mature the ending of it ended up being. Because again, the movie was advertised very heavily as Liam Neeson punching wolves. It's like no, like I think he does punch a wolf at one point, but all he does is scare it off, and it's in the early goings. But the finale, it's just kind of like there's nothing left to do, and then the movie ends. Have you seen this one, Brad?
I love The Gray.
Enough said.
No, I mean, it's been a while, but I really liked Gray. I was just curious, I haven't seen it post getting Letterboxd, so I don't have it logged, but ratings on this one are lower than I would have expected. Like, I would say this, for me, is probably the highlight of Liam Neeson in the last 10, 15 years, unless I'm forgetting, like, I like it more than Taken for sure. I like it more than Nonstop. Like, I like those movies, but this one is not really that.
it's a it's a different caliber of film.
Yeah, like, there is action and stuff, but it's more like it's a very introspective kinda thing, and it is like it's a survival movie more than like a, punching bad guys kinda thing. Yeah, I really like The Gray, so I'm surprised I'm looking at just, like, a lot of people I follow and a lot of threes, like, no. This
Well,
is at least a 4 for me, at least.
it's been a long time since I've watched it, but I could see perhaps like the some of it being a little bit laborious for some people because
Mhm,
it is a miserable, like dreadful experience in a lot of ways. It's not a pleasant movie to watch. Like it's not exciting. Like it's thrilling, but it's not like entertaining, I guess. And
mhm,
on top of that, one of its strengths is how it handles basic logistics. Is it reminds you, and this is like one of life's most awful lessons it can teach you is that like simply getting from one place to another is some of the most arduous stuff you'll ever do in your life. Like there's that sequence where I think they're trying to scale a cliff or scale down a cliff. They have to like jump into a tree line or something, and it takes a very long time, and you get to watch every wrinkle in the process. In a lot of ways, it reminds me of Sorcerer, which is probably the better film, but they do share some similarities in that they're both highly brutal films that don't shy away from showing all the detail and all of the effort that goes into doing seemingly very simple things in tricky situations. Um, Highly recommended if you're in the mood for something similar to The Gray.
yeah, yeah, I mean, I love survival thrillers, so, but yeah, I do remember really liking the ending of The Gray, but it has been quite a while. Yeah, I might need to pop on that. 4K would be nice on that one.
I mean, if Joe Carnahan is not doing as well as I think he is, I don't know if that's going to be on offer anytime soon. Plus, Liam Neeson, keeps doing interviews, and it's like the caliber of his film role seems to keep going down. But have you seen Scorsese's Silence? Because I haven't.
I have, yeah.
How I heard he shows up and he wrecks. He just like he shows the fuck up.
Yeah, no, he's quite good in that. I kind of forgot. I always skip over that, like, because he's not the lead, so I didn't think. But
Yeah, yeah.
Silence is probably the better film that he's done in the last 15 years. But yeah, Silence is it's. I liked it actually. I think a lot more than most. It is very long. It's very like it's pretty slow. It's pretty contemplative, and it's tackling themes of religion and faith and belief, and certainly not a fun watch. But it is very good, and that's one that I would definitely that I need to rewatch that at some point as well.
Yeah, the subject matter scared me away from that one, but I've heard it's very good, and in particular, I want to see it just to see him, just to see Liam Neeson, because we've said this, or I've said this several times in conversations with you. I've always had like a particular attachment or fascination with Liam Neeson as an actor. And everything I read about it suggested that like he commits to that role much more than we've seen him do in a very, very long time. And I'm curious what that looks like.
Yeah. I think I had that on my top 10 list the year it came out, but I could be wrong.
I mean, it says quite a lot, especially considering it's a movie that doesn't get talked about at all, like at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, I logged this bad boy as a 4.5.
Oh shit!
So
Okay,
although
well,
I do have to say, shout out to somebody I follow on Letterboxd, Suntory Time. I liked their review of Silence. They said beautifully boring. So
okay, well, that's enough of the gray. Brad, what is your next pick?
well, let's go with I've been doing kind of a lot of final scenes, final shots. Let me go one that is more the climactic moment. It's not a final scene ending. And this is the ending, the climax, I suppose, of The Killing of a Sacred Deer with Colin Farrell and Nicole Kidman. So basically, this is a very weird movie. It's Yorgos Lanthimos, who I love Yorgos Lanthimos. One of my favorites working today for sure. In a nutshell, the plot is Colin Farrell befriends Barry Keoghan, however you say his name. Um, Partly because we find out Colin Farrell is a doctor. He's got some guilt because he was responsible. I think he's a surgeon. He was responsible for not saving Barry Keoghan's father, so he's got guilt for that. So he starts to become a father type figure to the boy, but the boy starts to get very weird. Basically, he invites Colin Farrell over to meet his mom, and he wants them to get together, and he wants Colin Farrell to be his real dad. Gets very weird. So Colin Farrell essentially is like, this is getting too weird, and he cuts the kid off. While Barry Keoghan shows up, and he basically tells him, if you don't, since you took my dad from me, if you don't kill somebody in your family, you will die, or so, or your family members will get sick until they all die if you don't kill one of them first. And we never, it's kind of like a little bit fantastical. We never find out what exactly, how this is happening, how he's going to plan on killing them. But eventually the kids start to get sick, and they start to bleed from the eyes. And basically it kind of builds to this point where Colin Farrell realizes that yes, he does have to kill somebody in his family. And the climax of the movie, which is maybe one of my most memorable like images that I can think of a movie in recent years, is Colin Farrell can't he's got a two kids and a wife, can't decide who he's going to kill. So what he does is he ties them up, puts bags over their heads. He puts on like a full like ski mask, face mask kind of thing, so he can't see. He takes a rifle. He puts them all in a circle in the living room, and he takes this rifle, and nobody can see. Obviously, he's in the middle of them, and he just starts spinning around. And every once in a while, he stops and shoots, and he misses, goes, spins some more, stops and shoots. And he does that a few times. And just the image of Colin Farrell with this like ski mask on, with his family around him, spinning around with a right, like it is just such a memorable, amazing image. And this movie's full of great, like beautiful shots. Like, but that idea is so good, I think, that it's totally continued to stick with me. And there is, I believe, a scene after that that kind of is like a little bit of a closing scene with Barry Keoghan's character. Not super crazy about that final scene, but that climax of Colin Farrell spinning around with the rifle, shooting his family until one of them gets hit, is pretty amazing. And I won't spoil who gets hit. I don't need to say that necessarily. Just the concept of it is what is amazing to me. So yeah, this is a real good one. Real good one.
Well, I appreciate you saving a little sliver of the spoilers there, because I haven't seen that one, but my brother kind of turned me on to Lanthimos as a director. He did have me watch The Lobster, and part of it was it was like a kind of a litmus test where he was like, "So I think this movie's hilarious. Not everyone does, but I do." And he was like, "How do you feel about it?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's pretty fucking funny."
Hmm.
Not everybody would agree with that, but I guess that tells you how my brother and I are wired. um, but as a result of having been introduced to that film, I'm very, very curious to explore more of his filmography. Uh, and that film, I believe Kyle speaks very highly of as well. So I'm very curious to check it out. I think that was the first time Barry Keegan or Keoghan, or however it's pronounced, popped up onto my radar. A lot of people's radars, for that matter, at least in our region in the U.S. Um, but yeah, that I mean, I really just want to see what that, like, how that's framed, like how that's
Hmm.
shot, because I can picture it in my head, but without confirming like how what the shot compositions were like. Like I'm actually really kind of really interested to check that out.
Yeah, and there's like so many like memorable images like that in this movie that you almost kind of maybe get a sense that he just had these ideas and these images in his head and built the rest of the movie around it. Like, the kids, as they get sick, they start bleeding from the eyes, and then they start to be where they can't walk. And so there's just this like these children just crawling around on the floor, bleeding from the eyes. And they know that uh, Colin Farrell, to make it stop, is going to have to kill one of them.
Oh.
So they're like trying to like get in his good graces. So they're like crawling on the floor, bleeding from the eyes, and like, "Father, come check out this, come check out my, my homework and come play with me," but just, like, so it's so absurd and dark, and it's awesome.
No, see how I'm laughing at your description of that? Like, again, that
Mhm.
tells you a little something about how I'm wired.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, I could see people watching it and not thinking it's funny, but it's definitely very darkly comic. Like, there's also when Colin Farrell is deciding who to kill, he, like, goes to the kids' school and their schools, and he starts asking about their grades, like, trying to figure out which one.
I don't want to kill the smart one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
I should probably check that out. Sounds like you're already having me laugh at the movie without having seen it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll have
it's a
to
good
check
one.
that out. Yeah. Okay, so time code is roughly that. Um, so I'm gonna call this my last pick. You good to go another round, Brad, or how you feeling?
Uh, I mean, it's up to you. I can do one more, or we can just go right into the, speed round.
If you have one that you're really wanting to talk about, you of course may go another round. But I think this is gonna be my last pick.
Yeah, we can I can just do the speed round, I think, after this, yeah.
Okay. Well, what's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? Um. Okay. Well, again, I'm kind of trying to focus in the second half of the episode here on stuff that we haven't talked about before, just for novelty's sake. So again, this is not something that I think is better than any of the other movies I have in front of me. It's just, something to talk about. So I have here a completely bare bones Universal Blu-ray. I'm pretty sure a 4K exists of this by now. I mean, it'd be kind of weird if it didn't. Of Brian De Palma's Scarface,
Mm.
featuring Al Pacino. So this is both a fantastic finale in terms of climax, as well as a fantastic finale in terms of final shot. It achieves both in one fell swoop. So this is a movie that is beloved by a lot of people for all the wrong reasons. It is a delightful piece of entertainment, but there's a lot of life lessons imparted to a lot of the wrong people via this movie. um, a lot of it having to do with greed and drug use, and violence and whatnot. But um, this movie was a really big deal for like me and my friends when we were in high school. But the finale of it is particularly memorable, in that it's like a slam bang like action climax, but there's a lot of layers to it as well. Like Brian De Palma knows how to make a fucking movie, and I believe Oliver Stone penned the script for this one, if memory serves. Um, but basically, we have a scenario where our title character, or yeah, our title character Scarface, Tony Montana, played by Al Pacino, is in his mansion. The Colombians want his ass. He's gonna get shot. Everybody wants him dead tonight. And he's reached a point in his career of criminality that he's backed into a corner. There's nowhere else to go, physically or otherwise. And not only that, he's severed every connection he has with humanity and just like goodness in his world. So he's had this weird fucking psychosexual connection with his sister, who tries to moita him because he moited her husband, who is also his best friend. And then he ends up killing her, or no, she gets shot. Excuse me. She gets shot by the Colombians, but then he kills the person who killed her. Point is, he killed his best friend, and then his sister, who is basically the only person who gave a shit about him. His mom hated him, and now she's dead, and all he has left is a mountain of cocaine and an M16 with a grenade launcher. So he takes a wad of cocaine, he does it all in one huff, and then say hello to my little friend. He blows open the door, and what follows is 2.5 minutes of Al Pacino shooting the fuck out of people in an ultra gaudy '80s mansion. Um, but like I said, there are actual layers to it. It's not just him shooting people. Like you can actually dig a little deeper, and it's really fascinating the way he finally meets his end, because he gets shot numerous times during this finale here, but he keeps shrugging it off and getting like he's on a lot of coke. like I'm sure he's not exactly feeling all of the wounds that are being inflicted on him. He will die eventually, but for the time being, for a good solid couple of minutes of screen time, he seems utterly invincible. Like he's just wrecking people's shit, and every time they shoot him, he gets back up and keeps going. He's the shortest Terminator that ever was. But he's not the T-800, he's the T-400.
Yeah, yeah.
The Cuban model. It's like they didn't produce many of them. But in his final moments, what's the killing blow to him is actually uh, a pair of shotgun shells to the back. Uh, his last moments on Earth are spent cussing out people hiding in the rubble, gesticulating and flailing about wildly, basically ranting and raving about how he's invincible, nobody can touch him, he's the baddest motherfucker that ever was. And then he gets shot in the back, and he falls off the balcony into a pool. And then there's this lovely crane shot that has the ironic "the world is yours." It's like, not when you're dead. He has a golden globe hung in his home that says "the world is yours." And yeah, he dies face down in a pool. And it's just like all the bravado, all the violence, all the masculinity in the world can't save you from a shot to the back. Um, and thus is the tale of Scarface. It's a truly legendary finale in trash '80s cinema. Such I forget what movie it was, but like I actually saw clips of the finale of Scarface embedded in another movie. I can't remember what movie it was, but it's like on in the background of some other movie that I
That sounds
remember.
right, yeah.
Yeah, I remember seeing it when I was a little kid, and I was like, "What the fuck was that?" And my dad was like, "Well, son, that's Scarface. Someday your life will be changed by Scarface, hopefully for the better, or not at all." Um, but yeah, I don't know why this one popped into my head while we were talking. I actually pulled it off the shelf while we were talking for some reason, but I haven't watched it in a long time. But for whatever reason, in having talked about it just now, I kind of man, I have a lot of things I gotta either rewatch or go out of my way to watch right fucking now because there's too many good
Yeah,
movies out there, Brad.
it happens. It happens. Yeah, I have to say, I have not seen Scarface. I've seen the ending, obviously,
Okay,
uh,
good,
probably
good,
just on
good, good.
YouTube or whatever. But
Okay.
yeah, I've never seen the whole thing. I own it. I've got the 4K, the aforementioned 4K. But I guess it's mostly that runtime. But it's it's De Palma, so I definitely need to pop on it because I really like De Palma. But there is some other De Palma that I also haven't seen. Like I haven't seen Dressed to Kill. I have that. So I've got some blind spots in his filmography. But the weird thing with Scarface is it feels like it's kind of a movie that's transcended his filmography a little bit. Like,
Oh yeah. It
yeah,
is it's like in the grand scheme of his filmography, it's one of the better remembered ones by
yeah.
mainstream audiences, but it is not indicative of his flavor for the most part.
Hmm.
Like it does have his Hitchcockian tension sequences. It has several of those. Like the you haven't seen it, but there's a sequence earlier in the film that has some cinematography and some editing that's very much his brand. Carlito's Way is kind of a spiritual successor to Scarface in some ways that it does that as well. There's a sequence involving trains that's very much him, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Its cultural footprint is outsized in connection with his filmography in particular.
Yeah, I think I just want to play the Scarface "The World Is Yours" video game before I watch the movie. I'm
I
waiting
remember when that came
to do
out.
that.
That was a
Yeah,
PS2 game, wasn't it?
I think so.
I
Yeah,
think it came out, funny enough, directly inspired a lot of the Grand Theft Auto games from that era. GTA Vice City is Scarface, essentially. Um, and then, funny enough, everything comes around again. They ended up making a Scarface video game because, it inspired some video games that were doing really well at the time. So it's like, hey, why not slap the Scarface brand on one of our own and make it half as good? I actually heard it isn't terrible. I never
yeah,
played it myself.
yeah. There was quite a few of those. I know there was a Reservoir Dogs game. I believe there was a Godfather game.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, very no
I could.
Goodfellas game. I don't think, but
No Goodfellas. I think there was a Sopranos game.
yeah, yeah, it makes sense.
Pretty sure that, and then there was a PS2 era game called The Getaway. It was a sequel, I think, or it was a franchise that was heavily inspired by like Guy Ritchie stuff of the day. Um, there was a lot of interesting like movie tie-in or media like cross promotion going on in that era. Most of it was bad, but every once in a while you got a King Kong the video game where
Yeah,
Peter Jackson was actually involved in the making of the thing and was like deeply connected with the production of it.
I kind of miss those days. I got to be honest.
Me
Like
too.
I kind of like when there was like so much video game tie-in movies coming out. Like now, every once in a while you'll get something that's kind of tied in, but more just like a character or a franchise, and usually they're very good. But I kind of miss the days where it was like no matter what you were into, there was a video game for it. Like it was kind of fun. I don't know.
Yeah, and it was on every console, and
Yeah.
basically 80% chance it was going to be total fucking garbage, but we all played it. We
Yeah.
all had weekends where you wanted to rent those games. Actually, that was like a pet project for catching up on cinema. Maybe just something divorced from catching up on cinema would probably be more appropriate, but I actually kind of wanted to do that as like a project. It was like either stream or review movie tie-in games from back in the day and maybe take a look at some of the movies themselves because you're absolutely right. We were inundated with them. Like one of the funniest ones that comes to my mind is a movie that came out on Blu-ray within the past year. That I the only reason I am aware of it is because it was advertised really really heavily in a lot of comic books I was reading at the time. But there's a Ray Liotta starring film called No Escape. That the cover art is him holding a bazooka like this, and I think Ernie Hudson's in there, and it's from His name escapes me at the moment, but it's the director of The Mask of Zorro and GoldenEye and Casino
Mm,
Royale. Um,
Martin Campbell.
thank you. I couldn't remember in the moment, but yes, you're absolutely right. It's from him, but I think it's like just before all of that. And there exists a Super Nintendo game of it. And I don't know anyone on this planet who's seen that movie.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone. I've never met a human being who has seen No Escape.
See,
The only
that's
reason I
awesome.
even remember it is because there's a fucking advertisement for it in every comic I was reading at the time. But yeah, I've heard the game sucks. uh, back to Scarface though. Brad, I'm gonna guess just based on the vibe, and I'm gonna confirm it by reading the box. Giorgio Moroder. Yeah, Giorgio Moroder did the score for Scarface, and he did a bang up job.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with it at all?
I don't know if I am.
It's interesting actually, because like most people when they think of Scarface, they think of the cokehead like dance dance yippee yayo music.
Yeah.
It's just like Michelle Pfeiffer doing the noodle arms dance, strung out on cocaine. Everyone in this movie's on the coke. She even has a little spoon. Um, but most people think of that like the crazy dance music that plays through it, like Push It to the Limit and all that shit. But the actual score for the movie, it's heavily electronic, like it's all synth, but it sounds like eulogy music or something. Like
Hmm.
it sounds funereal in tone, and it plays over the closing moments of the film. It's the actual theme of the movie. It has like kind of a little bit of a disco funk vibe during the opening credits sequence in the film. Very good score, underrated. Not It's not talked about enough because it's grossly overshadowed by Push It to the Limit, which is, a great ass song, but
Yeah.
it does other things, Jerry. uh, I think that's about it for Scarface. But did you say you wanted to head into the speed round then?
Yeah, I think the rest of these I can kind of burn through, I think. So,
Yeah, I have too many picks. In fact, I probably just won't talk about a lot of them just because I have too many. But would you like me to go first, or are you ready to go?
yeah, I can handle it. I'll go first cuz I got two that I can tie into
Oh,
Scarface.
perfect, perfect, perfect.
Um First one being the Godfather trilogy, but I will not be counting Godfather Part 3. Not crazy about that ending, but I obviously the first one has an iconic final shot, and I actually really like the second ending quite a bit. The idea that he's made it to the top, but he's all alone. I think that's a fantastic ending. Also, another Brian De Palma film, Blowout. Uh, the idea of John Travolta using the scream of Nancy, is it Allen? Yeah,
Yeah,
Nancy Allen, and using it in his film and continually torturing himself because of the guilt of what he's done. Classic ending. Couple here about, I actually I like uh movies about relationships, I guess, specifically endings regarding relationships. And I have here Lost in Translation, which I'm pretty sure most people know the ending of that, the whisper that you don't hear, which is an amazing ending. And Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Obviously, Jim Carrey, Kate Winslet get their minds erased, their memories of each other erased, but they end up meeting each other again, find out about their failed relationship, and agree to give it another go. But then the final shot shows them running on the snow-covered beach, and we have it repeats itself three times. We watch the same shot three times, and kind of signaling that they potentially continue to fall in love and have a turbulent relationship and erase each other from each other's memories again. Um, the Social Network, which I think has a 4K that I don't own, although the 4K might only be in like the Sony Classic or the Columbia Classic, whatever. But I'm a sucker for the ending of this one. whole thing of Mark Wahlberg or fuck. Well, I was on a roll there for a second.
Podcast over.
Yeah. No, Mark Zuckerberg having started this whole thing because of
Wouldn't
getting
Facebook be a much more interesting company if Marky Mark was the CEO?
I I tell you, it's not even a great company now. Who knows what it'd be like if he was I don't even want to think about.
Hey,
But
bro, you gotta get some more friends.
um yeah, just the final scene of him going looking that girl up that started this all essentially and sending her that Facebook friend request and just sitting there and slowly hitting refresh every so often, I think is a perfect bow on the end of that one.
Mhm.
First Reformed from not Paul Verhoeven, Paul Schrader. I always get them confused. Paul Schrader, Schrader up. In this one, I won't even say much about it, but just it involves Ethan Hawke straddling himself with barbed wire while he has a bomb strapped to his chest. That's all I'll say. That's all
Okay,
you
I heard
need.
that was a very good movie, for
It
what
is
it's worth.
very good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is. It's solid. And a lot of it is because of the ending.
Okay.
Um, and I guess I'll just mention the last one here. Yeah, I don't need to say anything. Last one I'll say the Hurt Locker, um, which I just I mentioned this I think in a recent episode I did just the idea of a war movie trying to do something different thematically, and the idea of the Hurt Locker. He ends up going home, and the only thing worse than war is having to go to the grocery store with your wife, and him reenlisting, which I think is a very interesting take on war. The idea that he's become so addicted to the intensity of it that he can't go back to normal life. I think that is a really great ending. That then that idea doesn't really come into play until the final 5 minutes of the movie, even. Which, yeah. So it's another good one. So just love a good ending. Love a good ending.
Yeah, you got some bangers in there.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I haven't seen The Hurt Locker. I kind of just like deliberately avoided it.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw I think the first 20-30 minutes of it though, and it was compelling.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah.
I think around the time it wasn't up to me, but around the time I had to stop watching it was they were pinned down by a sniper, and everybody was very tired and very bored and very
Mm-hmm.
stressed. um, I'd like to go back and rewatch it, but or watch it rather. Um, but yeah, good picks, Brad. I like when you have a lot of stuff for the speed round. It's more fun that way.
A lot of good endings out there. A lot of good endings.
There are. So I guess the ball is to me. So I'll actually start with one from the same director as Brad's last pick there. So it'd be Catherine Bigelow, Zero Dark 30. I only saw this very recently as part of my watch and own every Scott Adkins movie ever. He's in 3 shots of this thing. He points a gun at somebody. He does not discharge his firearm though. He just points it at someone and then it gets exploded. So that was Scott Adkins's entire participation in Zero Dark 30. Very, very good film though. I was actually really taken by how quality this movie is overall. Again, very laborious, very tedious. Shows every step of a very boring process in a lot of ways, such that it grates on you from time to time. Very much not a film for everybody, but for me, I really enjoyed it. And the closing moments and shot of this movie are great. Where do you want to go now? that's our main character's answer after devoting their life to one cause and one cause only for a very, very long time.
That's a good final line. That is a good final line.
Yeah, like you can go anywhere you want. Where do you want to go? I don't know. Quality performance from Jessica Chastain, who I chronically overlook. Like I know she's good. I just don't generally see things that she does. But she was excellent in that. Um, I have Michael Mann, Heat. Uh, Kind of similar ending to Collateral in some ways. There's that weird like cop and robber kind of, we share a weird metaphysical connection. It's we don't quite understand, but somehow we're connected. Also, a little bit of a deliberate homage to Bullet, if memory serves,
Mm.
the Steve McQueen movie. Also, an excellent movie that I don't own. Um, I have 1986 Transformers the movie, basically the movie that shaped me as a human being. Till All Are One, followed by Orson Welles as a detached giant head orbiting the planet, freeze frame, butt rock. Best ending ever. I have Godzilla 2014 on 4K, which was apparently $14.99. I better get the
Oh,
Gugon
nice.
out.
I almost pulled that one off. Well, I only have the Blu-ray, but that was in consideration for me.
Was a weird 4K actually. I actually only had this on like, I had it on Blu-ray. Then my aunt mailed me the DVD because she thought I needed it. But if memory serves, the 4K for this one didn't come out until like several years after the Blu-ray release,
Yeah. Yeah.
which was odd, especially considering this is a wonderful candidate for the format. Beautiful imagery in this movie. Really, like this movie just keeps growing in terms of my appreciation for it, like as time goes on. And I've said it before on the show, the last shot of this movie, he fucking did it. Like he got it. Like he knew what to do. That's how you end a Godzilla movie, god damn it. Just he goes underwater and it's over. That's it.
Done.
No more movie. It's over. There's nothing else to do. You think I care about Aaron Taylor Johnson? No. No, absolutely not. The lizard's gone. I'm out. Roll credits. I have from director Steven Spielbergo, the greatest home run in cinema history, aside from perhaps the blowing up of the Death Star. Smile, you son of a bitch. Uh, as well as not what it says on the cover. Fuck off. But Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park. Not Jurassic World, Jurassic Park. When that T-Rex shows up and saves the day, and you know that entire 10-minute piece of John Williams music that plays along with it, that's cinema.
Also, I
Um,
love the final moments
yes,
with
in
them
the
in the
helicopter.
helicopter
Yeah,
and the kids sleeping on Alan and the birds. I mean,
beautiful
that's
character
good.
moment. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely beautiful. Uh, was it Rurouni Kenshin? The Legend Ends. This is the third movie out of 5 movie series. Part 4 and 5 have yet to come out on a physical format in this country. Really fucking pissed about it. Only available on Netflix. Um, the last half hour of that movie is just like action, just just action gorgeousness. It's just unbelievably cool. Um, and I have the Rocky collection because basically all these movies end brilliantly, with perhaps the exception of 5. Sue me for what? But, you know, ain't gonna be no rematch. Don't want one, Adrian. Blah, blah, blah. I watch a lot of Rocky. Um, I have. Oh, the girlfriend's note is still on this one from when we did the grab bag episode, the
Oh, that's
ghastly
right.
grab bag, where uh, folks, if you're not aware, Brad and I did a Tales from the Shelf episode where he and I had our significant others select movies from our collections without telling us and put them in a sack for us to pull out on the spot. And this was one that the girlfriend pulled out. This is Mike Judge's Beavis and Butthead Do America. They find their TV. It's beautiful. They lost it, but they got it back. I have. Sorry if this is going on too long. You can always give me the high sign if you're fed up.
No, you're good, man. I like this.
Okay, cool. I have The Street Fighter Collection, the 3-film Sonny Chiba collection from Shout Factory, Shout Select series number 65, by the way. All three of these movies end wonderfully. First one ends with him tearing the throat out of some guy and then holding it up to the sky while rain and thunder pour down upon him. Credits, just the words "the end" credits, and then fade to black. The second one ends with the bad guy getting blown up in a car fire. Sonny Chiba going credits, and then the third one ends with his lady love accidentally getting blown up in a car fire, and then him going, "No, that wasn't for you. That was for the bad guy." um, I have, speaking of Oliver Stone, I have Platoon. Charlie Sheen gets a ride home, and he is forever changed, and you can tell just by the visuals and whatnot. I have a Mortal Kombat box set that's gonna make you puke in your lap. It's Mortal Kombat, Mortal Kombat Annihilation, and Mortal Kombat Legacy. There is a Mortal Kombat Legacy 2, but I don't have it, so this is an incomplete box. I just hurt myself. I'm specifically referring to the ending of Mortal Kombat where Frank Welker says, "You weak, pathetic fools. I've come for your souls." And then Christopher Lambert says, "I don't think so." And then, the theme music plays. It's the Super Mario Brothers ending where it's like, "You'll never believe this, guys. There's gonna be a sequel." No, there's not. Although in Mortal Kombat's case, they got a couple. Orca, the killer whale. Super sad fucking ending if you actually think about it. Have you seen this one, Brad?
No, I haven't seen this one.
Okay, this is an eat 'em up that you might want to check out just because
Yeah.
it's very ludicrous in some ways, but one of Ennio Morricone's most beautiful scores. Most beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Hauntingly beautiful. And it's about a fucking whale. I hate whales. They're smug. But yeah, the finale of this one involves basically every human character meeting some form of grisly end, and then Morricone's music plays, and it just ends. It's just like everybody's dead. You happy? No, too bad. You already paid. Um, Indiana Jones: Complete Adventures, now incomplete, rendered incomplete by the production of a fifth Indiana Jones movie, which is yet to come out, but they do have trailers. It is happening. I'm specifically referring to The Last Crusade, the Ride into the Sunset, which should have been The Ride into the Sunset, but that's why we can't have nice things. Ron Howard's Backdraft. Um, Divisive movie. Some people think it's way too fucking corny. I really like it. It's melodramatic as fuck. It's so over the top, so unbelievably over the top. All the dramatic beats are just blown totally out of proportion. But Hans Zimmer. This was the first time I really keyed in on Hans Zimmer as a composer, aside from maybe Rain Man. His score for Backdraft is phenomenal. And the piece of music that he composed for the finale of this movie, the last shots of it, as far as I can tell, I've never confirmed this, but as far as I can tell, it was so good that he actually ruined the edit of the movie. Like the movie actually slows down and like holds on a random shot of Billy Baldwin just so we can cue up with the music. It's ridiculous. It's a completely like it's an unmotivated long close up of Billy
Yeah.
Baldwin looking out a window, and I think the only reason it exists is so we can time it to the music. And they just, Ron Howard had made like one movie before this. Give him a break. uh, Little Shop of Horrors, specifically the director's cut ending that features all the unbelievably cool miniature work. Have you seen the director's cut ending of this, Brad?
I don't think I have. Maybe I looked it up because I know you guys covered it. Maybe I watched it on YouTube when you guys covered it recently, but I know for sure I've never seen the full director's cut.
Mm. Well,
At least I assume. I mean, maybe I've only seen one version of the movie. I assume it's not the director's cut, but
you can find it on YouTube. It's really cool though. They put a lot of sweat and tears into building the miniatures. The
mhm.
special effects are like top of the line for the time. Weirdly expensive movie, Little Shop of Horrors. Like if you look into the production history, it's like, huh? like really? I mean, the money is kind of on the screen. Like the time required to get the puppetry, the timing down on the lip sync and stuff was probably maddening. But anyway, moving on. Sam Peckinpah's The Wild Bunch. Fucking fantastic finale. Like one of the best shootouts in cinema history. Highly telegraphed in the first opening moments of the movie, but doesn't get much better than The Wild Bunch. Uh, and then I guess a last one here is a movie that I believe we covered on Catching Up on Cinema at one point. I have the uh, both the Korean DVD of The City of Violence as well as the Dragon Dynasty domestic DVD of City of Violence. This one's foreign region. Um, the closing line: everybody's dead except for one guy. It's just camera zooms in while he's sitting in a pile of his own blood. Oh fuck! Snap to black. It's fuck. It doesn't get more blunt than that. It's just
I
like
like
wow,
it.
that was a lot of violence. Fuck. But yeah, that was probably all the fantastic finales I have. So sorry for that.
No, there's some good ones in there. Killer picks.
Okay. Well, this was a really fun one, Brad. I'll have to go back and edit the time codes in there to alert people of spoilers and whatnot. But uh, thank you so much, as always, for joining me. I really appreciate having someone to bounce ideas off of.
Yeah, of course, man.
Yeah. But before we go, would you care to tell the folks at home where they can find you and your super awesome podcast?
Yeah, it's the Cinema Speak podcast. So you can find us iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you listen to shows. We're on Twitter at the Cinema Speak, on Instagram as Cinema Speak Podcast, and on YouTube as Cinema Speak. And you can listen to us on the web at cinemaspeak.libsyn.com.
All right. Well said. Thanks for all that, Brad. By the way, how's your? I see you have your Funkos out on your shelf. Are those all gifts, or are you a collector in your own right?
Mostly gifts. Few I've bought on my own, but mostly gifts.
Yeah, it's funny because Funko is apparently based not too far from where I live, and like you can actually like do tours of the factory or the company. I was invited at one point, but I've yet to go.
Yeah.
But it was really kind of incredible how much that took off, like how much
Oh,
those
yeah.
became a thing. Like they have Funkos for fucking everything now.
Yeah. I like them half ironically, half unironically.
I I want to say that's probably most people
Yeah.
are into
Yeah,
it.
there's a lot of people out there who are fully unironically love them, but
Well, not my kind of people. It's like- well, anyway, thanks for all that. But folks at home, if you'd like to catch up on any of our other Catching Up on Cinema content, you can find all of that collected on our website at catchinguponcinema.com. You can also find us on the social medias in the form of the Instagram at Catching Up on Cinema, as well as the Twitter at Catching Cinema. So feel free to hit me up at either of those. And the podcast is available on pretty much every platform you can imagine, including Bitcade and occasionally YouTube. So feel free to check it out any way you can. But that being said, thank you so much for listening and or watching, and we'll catch you next time.